Good morning. A little bit of rattling off stage. I went to Flower Club and I made a lovely arrangement with dahlias in it, but it's dying. Oh, not dying. The hot weather is getting to it. So I've just been out into the garden to pick some replacement flowers. I'm going to add them in to the arrangement I made a few days ago. So grab yourself a cup of tea. Perhaps you're arranging flowers with me, your scissors, and you're arranging bits and pieces, and let's tweak an arrangement together. And this is my arrangement. So I have just cut these flowers from the garden. It looks like it's going to be another really hot day today. My dahlias, ranging length from long stems, put it in some water, to really, really short stems, and that's the longest stem I could take before it branched out into the other buds, and then middle-sized dahlias as well. And I've also got some echinacea. This is quite an immature one. They get a little bit bigger. Mine are a little bit darker pink, and then in due course the petals fall off. The seed head develops a little bit more, but it gets pollen on it. So if you do have echinacea in your flower arrangements, you just need to be careful, or need to be aware of the fact you'll end up with pollen on your work surface. So you need to be clearing that away. And this is the arrangement that I made at Flower Club. So it was a bit of a rearranged arrangement from the week before. The title for Flower Club was Summer Party, I think, something like that. And I didn't want to go out and buy flowers. I was working, didn't have time to go. So I put together an arrangement. And what I did is I had 3 fresh flowers. Can you see this big dahlia here? So that was my sort of main flower I had. And then I had that dahlia there, that is sort of almost like a spider chrysanthemum. And then down here, a small dahlia tucked in. And what I quite liked about this arrangement, we've got quite a lot of fennel in our garden. So I sort of did an overplanting layer of fennel to give that wafty bit. But as I say, some of these flowers are probably a week to 10 days old. And you can see that they've started to die. So what I'm going to do, this little bud here hasn't developed. So I'm going to cut away the dead flower, recut the bud end, and put that back in the arrangement. And it may well flower. It probably won't, but it's going to add a little bit of decorative interest. It's always so hard to take good photographs or videos of flower arrangements. Trying to make sure that you can't see my kitchen bin there. They look really good to the eye, but they look quite cluttered when they're on film. I don't mind about that because I'm the one that's looking at them when they're sitting on my side. So a couple of other bits have gone over. This is some fennel. It was quite, the young juvenile growth. I just don't think it was mature enough to withstand being cut. So I am going through and I want my arrangement to look the best it possibly can. I'm not going to take out all the stems and recut them. That would probably be a good idea. Although could I, if I really wanted to, this is arranged on a grid. So actually I can lift the arrangement out of the container. So I could, if I wanted to, come from underneath and recut, but I'm not going to. But what I will take the opportunity of doing, I do need to put some more water in. When I filled it up, so we're trying to go foam free at Flower Club, so I took my container, I filled it up with water at Club, made my arrangement, then had to tip my water out as I walked home. And when I refilled, when I got in that night about 9 o'clock, I filled it right up to the top. And I've noticed over the last 3 or 4 days, the level of the water has gone down by about 2 centimetres. So it just goes to show that in hot weather, you need to keep yourself hydrated and your flowers hydrated. So as I've cut my 4 new stems, I'm going to put them into the arrangement where I found a gap. So I think originally these 2 echinacea here, I had them up a little bit. They fell down a bit on the journey home, and I never sort of readjusted them. They just want a little bit of light and airiness going through the arrangement. Conscious of the fact you can't actually see the flower that I'm talking about. It's this one here. It's got a lovely, I'm going to take it out. It's got a lovely stem. So, you know, it's creating some natural movement all by itself with that little kink stem, which is something, of course, you don't get if you're buying supermarket flowers. So I want to be able to, you know, see that wonkiness. So I'm going to have it looking like a very, you know, as if I've just picked it from the garden. The other thing I've got in here is borage. So the flowers have gone over. I've noticed, I've just moved this from my dining room, and there were some black seeds on the side. So I think they must have been borage seeds. So I've thrown those into our borders. So hopefully they'll come into flower next year. But this borage foliage here looks a little bit like tomato growth. So I'm just having in as a bit of natural greenery. I haven't actually got any greenery in this arrangement. I've got a decorative sedum. Well, all sedums are decorative. It's a dark-leaved one. It was quite a long stem. So I cut it in 2. So I've got a bit of foliage here. And then next to it, I've got the head of the stem. So I've just reduced the height a little bit. And what I am going to do is just reorganise that head of sedum so it covers the cut end. If you are going to do that, the bit where you cut your foliage in half and have 2 pieces, you've then got a wound here. You'll see a little bright bit of the stem. And so I have imagine this is the top of the seed, and I'm sort of re-put it down. So I've married the 2 together, but just reduced the height. So it was like that. And I put them together like that. And your eye is drawn to the beauty of the component parts of the arrangement and not to the flaws in it. So let's see what I can get in here, having just removed the 1 dahlia. So we are going to be dahlia happy. So this little short one here, I'm going to put around the side here. So it sort of talks. They're the same sort of shape, but different colours, smaller and larger. So I've got the smaller one on the outer edge here and the larger one over here. And then look at this glorious straight stemmed dahlia. So I've got a sort of nice flow going around, and that's going to, if I put this in, it's going to sound like a straight soldier. So I want to have a way of getting this in and not sacrificing too much of the length, because I'm so pleased I've actually got a flower that's long. I might cut it down a little bit. Oh, it's so satisfying giving that one a second cut. Perhaps I can sort of layer it in at the side. So this, yes, I like that there. It's gone up a little bit higher. You'll see all the mess in my kitchen. So it's gone in just there. But is there too big a gap between there and there? See, eye gets lost. I think there probably is. So I'm going to take a little bit off there. So it's more of a natural stepping out of the flower. So I've got 1 here, 1 recessed down below, and then it's just a gentle leap to the next one, instead of it being that huge leap up. So my flower frog, the grid that I've got that you didn't really see, is a 2-layer frog. You can just get the single layers. I find they're okay if you've just got a few, if the bowl's quite small, but if you've got quite a lot of flowers and you want them to go in a set place, I find the 2-layer flower frogs, the metal grids, which came with the bowl, are quite helpful. And in fact, I also put a smaller pin holder inside the base of the arrangement, because I knew I wanted to create this flow and not just going random. It's okay if you're making sort of like helmet of flowers, an old-fashioned swimming cap of flowers, where you just want them all sitting massed together. But because I wanted to create something that had a bit more flow, it's helpful to have just extra bits of security. And it doesn't matter how many bits of mechanic you use, what combination you use. I'm trying to go foam free, because it's flower foam, as we know, is bad for the environment. But if you need to layer up, you know, chicken wire and a pin holder in the bottom, that is perfectly fine to do that. This little flower is so small, short, I should say. So it's quite a good colour combo with the other dahlia there, which I can see the petals are starting to get a little bit papery. So what I will do, I think, I'm going to put it in here. So it's ready to become, you know, it's the what do you call it when you're acting and you're not the main actor, you're the side actor, so in case something goes wrong. Understudy, it's the understudy. So when this one has finally gone over, I can just whip that one out and then this one will come into its own. Now, what I particularly liked about this flower arrangement is I've got it on my dining room sideboard even. I quite like the colours. Can you see how the colours, the recessive colours, when you're looking at that, you can see this sort of hole of darkness with the dark leaf sedum and the darker dahlia and the darker seed head of the echinacea. It just goes to sort of a bit of recession and colour therapy in action there. But I've had it displayed. Oh, and look, even me just fiddling around a little bit, I've got some seeds. So I'm pretty certain these are from the borage. Perhaps you let me know in the comments. So what I tend to do is I just throw them outside and hope they grow. But I might, you know, if I wanted to be a bit more purposeful about it, I could save the seeds, put them in an envelope and perhaps gift them to someone. So I'm going to make sure I remember where I've put those. But what I quite liked, and next to my arrangement, I had sort of like a secondary placement. And I've had this sitting next to my arrangement. It's a scallop shell with a lovely sort of milky inside that I've decoupaged. And I just thought it looked, the colour combinations, by luck, I didn't plan it, I thought they just looked really nice. So it sort of got my two interests. I've done my craft night with Lisa and Jan, and then I've made a flower arrangement with my friends from Flower Club, and I've been able to put the two together and they speak to each other. So I thought you might want to, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a top layer on this, and you would have seen I've done several videos on decoupaging, and if you want to know more about those, let me know in the comments and I will link some of those videos for you. So it looks like this is just a single piece of napkin, and you might have been mistaken to think, forgiven for thinking that I had just glued one piece of napkin and put it down over my shell. So this was a little giftette from Lisa. She'd been to the V&A, so she told me proudly this was a napkin from the V&A. So it's a grey background and peachy coloured flowers, and you can see that I've used less than a quarter of the napkin to cover up. So what I've done is it's a single ply. So when I moistened my fingers and went like this, the napkin separated, so I pulled off the two white sheets and they got put in recycling, and then I went round and cut out, because it was quite a busy pattern. Sometimes I rip and sometimes I cut with water. Get a piece of water on your paintbrush and you can go around what you want, but because it was quite an intricate detailed pattern, I actually went round with scissors, and what I did was I placed my biggest flowers first, here, 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 here and here, and then I filled in the gaps with the smaller pieces, so it sort of gives the illusion that it was put down in one piece, but you can see here the concentration of flowers is more concentrated on my shell than it is on the piece of original napkin. And I just used an everyday ordinary school glue, PVA glue. Sometimes if it looks a bit thick and gloopy, I might add a bit of water into it. And then I have also got, I bought this years ago from Deco Patch. These are the people that do all the specialist bits and pieces for decoupage. They do all the lovely papers. And this is a sealing varnish. So I thought I might, although it has got a slight glint to it, I thought, the shell is nice and smooth and shiny, that I might create a top layer there. And that is something that's really easy to do. I think the hardest thing to do will be getting the glue off the pot. And I just use I've got an artist, is this an artist paintbrush, a children's paintbrush? I don't know. And I've shaken the pot up, and it is literally as easy as doing this. You can do this again with PVA glue, but I would just make sure if you're using the glue to stick and then you're wanting to use the glue again to glaze, just to make sure your decoupage is really dry. Leave it for 24 hours, because otherwise, if there's any hint that the papers are still wet, when you come and apply that extra layer of glue on the top, you run the risk that it is going to lift up. Can you see the glint there? Which it's wet, that's why it's partly the reason why it's shining. So that will be lovely when it's all done and dried. So the other thing I did when I did the shell, it's quite hard to go around the edges. I left my edges raw, so I just cut out and I left them hanging over the edge, because I wanted to get quite a neat, crisp finish. And I thought what I would do is I would sandpaper off the excess paper when it was dry. And I did that. I've seen YouTubers doing that, but as I tried doing it, I must admit I got in a bit of a pickle. I had a sanding block, so it was a square piece of foam with sandpaper on it, and I was going along, and you can see it hasn't been particularly accurate. I think part of the problem, why I found it a problem, was because my shell is scalloped. There we go. There's the word. The scallop is scalloped. It's not an even edge. So I think probably when I've seen people do this online, they've had straight lines doing it and it all comes off quite easily. So I was sort of shaving it off that way and then sort of coming back underneath. But I was conscious if I worked too heavily, I might actually be lifting the paper up. So that is that. And then the other things I've got to show you are, I've been thrifting again. So I picked this up at a vintage fair for £4.50, quite overpriced I thought, but it was a deluxe fair. So a little saucer, it's marked at the back, but not the thing I remember. And then we're going to have to wind up soon. I can feel the house coming alive with people coming down for breakfast. So a little jam pot there with the saucer. So I thought that was really, really lovely. And then the other thing I forgot to show you from my holiday was this tray. So talking about scallops, I've got a lovely scalloped pattern here. These are quite fashionable at the moment, trays with scalloped edges, and also quite trendy to have things that are bright red. So I thought I found this tray. It cost me £4. You'll have to trust me there. And I have bought some chalk paint and I'm going to paint that red. So that's going to be my little project to keep me busy over the weekend. So thank you for joining me, and I'll catch up with you next time.